like near 200 now. I'm so excited for this. Like for the week. Don't freak out.
I sent out 200 emails for the week. Like for today, I sent out 200 emails.
Okay. This is exciting.
Okay, we are live.
We are live. Okay.
And let's let everyone in.
Are you good if I start admitting people as well?
Yes. So we're just going to wait a few minutes before we start, just to let everyone in. And if anyone's running a few minutes late, we'll just let them join the session before we begin our presentation.
But hello, everyone. We would love to see your faces. So if those of you who have your camera off can turn them on, we'd love that. Some personal social contact in a COVID-19 world. Okay, we've got a couple more in the waiting room. I was muted this whole time. Thanks, Blush. Okay, I'm curious to know, those of you who are from the class of 2024, can you use the raise hand feature or the thumbs up or something so we can see how many of you are on here? I'm curious to see how many first years are here. Hi, Catherine. So we've only got three first years? Oh, here they come. Okay, there's more. Okay, thank you. I'm just curious. There's a couple of you here, and there's still some in the waiting room. But I think we're good to get started, and we'll just let people in. So if we randomly pause, just know that we're letting people in into the waiting room.
Okay, so it is 6:07 and we're going to start our first ever specialization series hosted by the Undergraduate Business Society, which is the student council at Schulich. My name is Mahek and I'm going into my third year of the BBA program, and I am your Vice President Academics BBA for this year.
And I'm Mina. I'm going into my fourth year, and I'm the Vice President of Academics for the IBBA program. We're very excited to have you here. Thank you so much for coming.
We're so thrilled by the turnout today, and we're so excited to start with accounting and international business as our specializations to kick off the whole series. So let's get started. And before we do that, let's just go into a little bit of a housekeeping note. So this slide deck is not going to be distributed, so please feel free to take notes during the session. We'll be asking you at certain points if you want to take screenshots. We'll be pausing, and you can also let us know in the chat if you want to make note of something. And this is a public forum, so please be mindful of what you type in the chat. There will be an opportunity for you to ask questions to our panelists, which will be during our Q&A session. So we ask that if you do have a question, just type in the chat that I have a question, and either Mina or myself will call on you, and you can unmute yourself and ask your question directly to the panelists. We're trying to make this as safe a space as possible. So if you have a personal question to ask, you can definitely do so, and we're all welcome to any questions that you may have. But just please ensure that you remain respectful at all times.
And we are live on YouTube as well, so we just wanted to put it out there. That is just for all of our international students at Schulich to have access to this presentation as well. So, Enrollment 101. This year is going to be a little bit different, and we wanted to cover some key points with you before we meet our speakers. So when you go to enroll in your courses this year, you're going to find that it says the following codes, either online, lecture, or blended. And so the key difference between online and then lecture and blended is the amount of time you have to study synchronously, which means all at the same time. You're sitting almost in a lecture in the comfort of your own home. So with online courses, there's no scheduled meeting time. So your professor well in advance would have had all their deadlines put out for you, and you can study the material at your own pace, provided that you hand in all of your work at the deadlines that the professor has written out. And for lecture and blended, so all or some of the meeting times will be synchronous. So you're going to have a prof deliver some part of a lecture to you, and some parts will be on your own. So when you go to plot my timetable after you've enrolled and you actually see a class on your timetable, that's when you know that that is the time you're expected to be sitting in front of your laptop as you are today and learning. So finally, for third and fourth years especially, the waitlist for all of your elective courses for the Schulich electives opens Tuesday, July 14th at 10 a.m. Okay, so BBA students, if you are in third year, you have to take the following course that you see in front of you. SGMT 3000 is mandatory, but if you would like to, you can take MGMT 4100 as well in your third year. But if you don't take it in your third year, then you have to take it in your fourth year. So the following is just for you to take note of how many credits you need to have, whether that be Schulich electives or non-business electives. And you can find all this information straight on the handbook as well. And so for IBBA students, it's very similar, except your course codes will obviously start with INTL. And apart from Schulich electives and non-business, you do have a component of your language study or your regionally focused elective as well. You do need 12 credits of regionally focused electives to graduate. And so if you are finished a language early and you've reached your intermediate to advanced proficiency, you can choose to take another language or have more regionally focused electives. It's up to you. So this is something that I wanted to share with you on the next slide, which is predominantly about non-business electives. So what's really important differs between programs. So for BBAs, if you are finished all of your courses in third year and you didn't do any fast tracking or you're not behind on any credits, you should have completed 60 credits by the end of your second year. So if you've done so, your non-business electives must be 2000 level or higher. So you can no longer take 1000 level courses. That's very important for the third years. And for fourth years, if you've completed 90 credits or above, your electives must be 3000 level or higher. So this is for the BBA students. This is where things always get a little confusing, and so I wanted to make it very clear. IBBA students, you can take up to 12 credits of non-business electives at the 1000 level. So you do not have this restriction for IBBAs. And so if you want to take voice and speech in your fourth year, whatever your heart desires, you can do so in the IBBA program. And your year level requirements, if you didn't know already, they don't apply to regionally focused courses. So if you still have the 12 credits to complete, you can still take 1000, 2000, whatever you like. But for both programs, what's important to note is that 1000 level courses are allowed and they do count as your non-business elective if they are a language course. So you can take French, Spanish, German, whatever at any time and still have it be a 1000 level course, and you don't have to worry about that year level requirement. So this is something that you should take note of, something that you can even take advantage of when you do hit your third and fourth years.
Okay, so now we're going to move into the actual specializations, which is what all of you are here to learn a little bit more about today. So for accounting, I actually realized when I was making this presentation that you do have two options at Schulich. You do have the option to pursue the CPA stream, which obviously leads you to doing either your Master's of Accounting or pursuing your CPA designation further, or you can do an accounting specialization just as an area of interest. So first, I'm just going to go through the various different paths you can take if you are pursuing your CPA. So this slide is actually if you're in the BBA program and you're not planning to go on an exchange term. So we wanted to put this here so you can just take a screenshot of this slide before I move forward. So I'm just going to let you take a second to take a screenshot of this. So as you can see, you have a bunch of your accounting courses that are dispersed between your third and fourth year, and you do have 6 credits of non-business electives in both years as well. The second option, if you're a BBA, is if you're planning to go on exchange in the winter semester of your third year. So as you can see now, you have all of your accounting courses and that mandatory course that you have to take in your third year in the fall term. Then in winter term, you go on exchange, and then in your fourth year, you will be taking those 6 non-business electives as well as the remaining of your accounting specialization electives. And the third option for BBAs is if you're planning to go on exchange in your fourth year in the winter term. So same thing, similar to the previous slide, you can see that just in the winter semester of your fourth year, you can see that you have it booked off for exchange. And in year 3, you'll be taking those same 6 credit electives with all of your accounting specialization courses dispersed within the third year and the first semester of your fourth year. Now, if you are an IBBA student, of course, you have a mandatory exchange requirement. So you have the option of either taking exchange in year 3 or year 4. So this one is for year 3. So as you can see, you actually have your language study, which you must complete in your summer terms. So this is the year after your second year and after your third year is when you have to complete these in order to fulfill all of your CPA requirements in time. And lastly, you have IBBA with fourth year winter exchange. So you have your language study over here right after year 3, and the same thing with right after second year as well. And you have your accounting courses dispersed with your regionally focused courses. And if you're planning not to go the CPA route, you do have the option of just doing an accounting specialization as an interest. So all you have to do is enroll in at least 12 credits of the following electives. So they're all 3 credit electives, meaning that you have to take 4 3-credit electives in order to fulfill a 12 credit requirement. So feel free to take a screenshot of the screen as well, but it's also available on the Schulich website under the accounting specialization information page. Moving on to international business, it's very similar requirements as we saw on the previous screen. you just have to enroll in at least 12 credits of the following international business electives. So they're all also 3 credits. You just have to take 4 of them in order to meet the requirement. And the last one is just for BBA students, since you haven't been exposed to that international business component since first year, you do have a couple more electives available to you, which are actually redundant for the IBBA. So these are only available to BBA students if you are pursuing the international business specialization. And now it's time to meet our panelists. So I'm just going to get our wonderful panelists who have so amazingly volunteered to be here with us today to introduce themselves. So we're going to start with Mahek, going to Anika, and lastly ending with Clarine. So go ahead.
Hey everyone, so my name is Mahek. I just graduated in 2020. One of my majors was international business, and I'm currently interning with the provincial government. I'm just going to pass it on to Anika.
Hi everyone, I'm Anika, just graduated as well. I specialized in accounting, and this fall I'm starting at PwC as a risk assurance associate.
Hi, I'm Clarine, and like Mahek and Anika, I just graduated this year as well. And I specialized in accounting alongside Anika, but I'm going to be working at Walmart as a DARE associate.
Okay, so let's move on to our first question of the panel. So Mahek, Clarine, and Anika, we just want to know, can you explain like your thought process and tell us about what factors influenced you to choose your specialization, and just tell us about how that experience was for you in 3rd and 4th year. So let's start with Anika.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of choosing accounting as a specialization, for me going into Schulich, I've always wanted to make sure that I had a technical background in something before I graduated. So if it wasn't going to be accounting, it was going to be something like finance or economics. And for me, accounting was just something that I thought was going to be more applicable in the future, especially if I wanted to start my own business. So that's why I kind of gravitated towards that. But even more so, I like that I was really interested in marketing, but accounting was able to balance that out as well.
Okay, and now let's hear from Clarine.
So what factors? And well, to be completely honest with you, I only went to business school because my parents wanted me to become an accountant. And that's kind of the reason why I made it so far into Schulich. And to be completely honest with you, accounting isn't something that I loved from the get-go because I wasn't a 17 or 18-year-old who just thought, I love accounting, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. But it was something that I did eventually grow into appreciate, which I'll talk more about later, I'm sure. But it is something that my parents did ask of me to do, and it's something that I'm really grateful for now that I'm done Schulich, because it has been extremely helpful to have a technical background, like Anika said. And it's really malleable. You can pretty much use accounting for anything, anywhere, even if you don't necessarily have a career in it. It's good to know. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Clarine. And now let's go to Mahek.
For me personally, I actually I moved around a lot growing up, and I still have a ton of friends all over the world. So that's kind of where my inspiration came from. And eventually I realized I kind of just wanted to work for myself. And one of the best ways to do that while still kind of keeping up the traveling and making sure that I'm, making enough money was to maybe look into the import and export field. But this is also where I came across a friend of mine who was working for the Ministry of Economic Development in Ontario. And so he was like, hey, you should join me for a couple projects. So before my 4th year, before I decided on specializing, I was able to work on a couple projects that really showed me what the field was about. And I ended up really liking the practical work. So I decided I'd put in the theory as well.
Thank you, Mahek. Okay, so on to our second question, which is really like 4 questions put into one. So pick 2 courses that you took as part of your specialization that you really enjoyed. And if you could just kind of give us the overview of the course, any highlights you found and how you were able to apply it if you were, and any tips you want to give about these courses to all of our attendees. let's start with Clarine.
Well, we can only see like my face like panicking. But I think the two courses that I would recommend that I really enjoyed, and I don't know if it's redundant, but it's Tax 1 and Tax 2, which sounds like probably, Nika's laughing at me, which is probably like the most boring sounding course there probably is to offer, because tax, you think it would be easy because you only, add like 13%, but apparently there's a lot more to it than that. The reason why I do recommend it and that I enjoyed it, despite the fact that I incredibly suffered while learning it, was because it actually is extremely helpful. Like when you go into accounting, the first thing anyone actually asks you is like, how do you do your taxes, or can you do my taxes for me? So believe it or not, like they actually teach you how to do your taxes in that course. And it's kind of like a whole new world of accounting once you sort of dig into the specialization in third year and in fourth year. You get very used to a certain way of doing accounting, but tax completely kind of flips it on its head and really kind of forces you to think in a different way than how you're probably used to thinking in all your different courses, whether it's accounting or marketing or orgs or anything at all. Tax is completely new. And it really pushes you to, figure out how to learn properly and how to learn in a completely new manner as well. So I think it was not, I feel like fun is a lie. It was not fun, but it was extremely, extremely informative. And I did really enjoy the learning aspect of it. And if you're here at Schulich, the best thing is how much you get to learn. And tax is probably the one thing that I learned the most in all 4 years. Tips I'd like to provide our attendees: stay stay awake in all of your tax courses if you take them. Always be aware of what the professor is saying. Take notes if you have to. Write down every example. It's like very standard, straightforward stuff you would think, but tax for that course specifically is something that you really need to pay a lot of attention to and genuinely put in the work, and to be okay with not doing as great as you expect to, because sometimes you don't, and that's just kind of how Schulich works most of the time. But no matter how well or how not well you did in that class, you really do get the opportunity to learn. And I think that's what you should be taking away from it, and not just taking the course to get a course done or to get like a certain GPA mark. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
Thanks, Clarine. We're going to jump specializations and go to Mahak.
So the 2 courses that I really liked as a part of international business were international marketing and managing international business activities. The second one was really great because it kind of dug into the economics behind the whole thing, whereas international marketing kind of just taught you about the differences between cultures, which is something I kind of apply every day when I talk to people. Just being careful where they come from, what they might be facing, how to kind of get them to speak up. So I guess like tips that you may want for these is just kind of like to pay attention. Like these courses are kind of just very easy to follow along, but to continuously maybe try to apply them to your life and interviews that you may do to kind of keep them relevant.
Thank you. And finally, Anika.
So jumping back to accounting, for me in third year, my favorite course was business administration and the law. So it's a law course. It's based around different business related things such as contract law or IP law, things of that nature. And the reason it was such a good course was the professor was amazing, but the material itself is so interesting, because other than that, your courses for accounting are so like number based that you don't really think about like the law as much, but it's all very much applicable. And as you're learning throughout your specialization, you'll realize how everything connects, which I personally thought was really cool. The second course that I really liked, just to echo Clarine, I really enjoyed tax. We both had a very difficult time learning it, but at the end, we came up with a lot more knowledge that we needed in our current careers, which I think is really helpful. And knowing how to do your tax, again, that's always a benefit. I think we always talk about how we wish high school would have taught us how to do our taxes. Turns out it takes a lot more than that. Tax is actually really complicated, but it's good to know. And that's really something that I enjoyed, especially in my last year at Schulich.
Right. I think those are really informative answers. I'm sure our attendees got a lot out of those answers, especially me because I want to go into accounting. So now let's move on to the next question. So now we're going to move on to like the career side of the discussion. So when you chose your respective specialization, what career path were you hoping to follow? And tell us a little bit more about what you do now and if that actually aligns with what you were hoping to do or what you thought you'd be doing with the specialization. So let's start with Mehak.
So like I said, when I first started specializing, for me, it was kind of a way to connect all the different places I've been, and like my friends and family might stay and make some sort of a living out of that. But then I kind of ended up in the government and started doing like project-based work, which really asked me to connect two countries together. So when I did specialize, I did end up relating it back to the work I currently do, because I currently work outreach. A big part of my job is to reach out to people, ask them how they're doing, talk to them about policies. And so on the daily, I run into so many different types of people, and it's kind of good to have the knowledge that I gained when I was doing my specialization, because it allows me to look at people, look at where they come from, and kind of talk to them in a way where they're able to open up to me, because not everybody's okay saying, hey, I need this, or I'm having trouble doing this, and kind of working it out with them.
Perfect. And let's go to Clary.
Thanks, Meg. So what career pathway was I hoping for with my specialization? So when you go into accounting, the kind of very obvious route is getting your CPA, or else it's kind of like, what have you been doing, or what are you doing here? So that's kind of the pathway I was going into in regards to what my future looks like. I use air quotations because I have no idea what's really going on with my future. Is that I really wanted to go into an industry that I have a passion for. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just financials, Wall Street, Bay Street type of stuff, because you come to realize that every company you can ever imagine will need an accountant. So it doesn't matter if you're going into publications, entertainment, fashion, NGOs, nonprofits, governments, like you need someone to handle the money that goes into whatever business or company that you're working for. So that really broadens the spectrum of, what can you do with an accounting specialization? It doesn't just have to be finances related. It can be so much more than that. So the pathway I really wanted to go into with accounting was literally anything in entertainment, anything with like books, movies, video games, all that kind of fun, nerdy stuff. So we'll see where that leads me. And does my specialization, align with what I'm doing now? So at Walmart, my job isn't directly correlated with accounting, believe it or not. So what I've been doing for the past 4 years at Schulich specializing in it, could not tell you, but what I am doing right now has a lot to do with numbers and data. So I do a little bit of supply chain. I can work in a little bit of marketing, some stuff with OMIS, finances, all that fun stuff. So it's a little bit of all the business that you learn at Schulich is essentially what I'm doing at my work right now. And I think accounting specifically really helped me, or is going to help me with that sort of role, because accounting gives you such a good foundation for work ethic and attention to detail and just perseverance. I think when you're specializing in accounting in year 3 and year 4, it's those sort of soft skills that specialization teaches you that I think will really be helpful when applying in any type of role that you're going to get post-secondary, or post-university. So yeah, I'm hoping that comes into play when I'm working. So yeah.
Thank you, Clary. And now let's move on to Anika.
So for me, long term, I really want to start my own business. I really want to do something that's my own and create kind of an empire on the side. But short term, after learning about accounting and knowing I want to specialize in it, working in a big four, I knew was going to be the environment that would really hone in on these skills, because getting your CPA afterwards is about 2 to 3 year process, especially working with a firm like that, you're going to be very intense in your work. And I think that's going to help me in my knowledge building. So that was ultimately what I wanted to do short term. And I am doing that starting in the fall, sorry. So I'm excited about that. And I'm hoping that that takes me to my journey where I'm able to create my own business in the future.
Thanks so much, Anika. Okay, so this next question is, what is one thing you wish you would knew about the specialization that you were unaware of during your undergrad? Let's start with Anika this time.
I think one thing I wish I would have known is that working in accounting and studying accounting are very different things. And sometimes you'll hate certain nuances that you're learning and not understand why they're there. But once you start working in it, you'll realize that everything kind of connects. That's what really let me continue specializing, is knowing that the work I'm doing I enjoy, and the school aspect of it all, sometimes it might be difficult, like I said, especially with tax, but knowing that it all comes into play. So that was really important for me, knowing that accounting and CPA was going to be a couple more years after Schulich as well. So that helps drive me continuing to study in accounting.
All right, and Clarine?
Yeah, kind of similar, but also kind of opposite to Anika, if that makes any sense. One thing I wish I knew with going into accounting is how much of it you really learn on the go as well. In a job, like Anika says, a lot of things do connect, but I find that the most enriching experiences I've had with accounting work are things that I've actually done myself that they don't necessarily always teach you in the classroom. It's a lot of things that you learn outside of the class with your job, because every sort of company will have a different way of handling accounting or finances, etc. So there's really there literally is like one way to study accounting, but it's so much more than just that. Like, it's going to branch out and it's going to be different. And it's going to be really interesting, I think, to learn about the different ways you can kind of do one sort of thing that school kind of teaches you is the only way, if that makes any sense. So I think that's something I wish I knew earlier, because it's such a big world and it feels really black and white, but it isn't. And like I said earlier, I do wish that I knew that there were so many other industries out there for me in accounting other than just financial services or in even just tax. Like, there's so many ways to branch out and to do more with something that you might think is really boring, and you can actually kind of make something cool about it if you try your best and you really look for those opportunities. So yeah, I wish I kind of had that mindset going in, because it would have opened up a lot more doors for me.
It's good to know. And Mahek?
I think for me it was how kind of underrated the specialization is, because it's kind of everywhere and you just don't think about it. You kind of fall into it. Like for myself, I fell into it, and then I studied it after. So I ended up studying a lot of the things that I already applied. So just maybe being aware that you're kind of looking at these things already. But yeah, I kind of wish that someone had told me I was already doing it.
Thank you. Well, a huge thank you to all of our panelists. That kind of concludes the questions that Mina and I had. So we're going to move on into our Q&A. So this is a time for all of you sitting at home to ask questions. I know that we had a lot of responses on our Google Forms. So whatever questions you have, just let us know in the chat and we will call you by your name. So I think the first person that actually already asked a question was, let me just look. Yes, Rita. Rita, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question to our panelists?
Yeah, sure. I just noticed at the beginning when you were distinguishing between like the two ways to specialize in accounting, which would be like for CPA or non-CPA. I was just wondering, would you be able to go like the CPA route and then also do another specialization?
Clarine, do you want to answer that question?
Like me or Anika? Yeah, so actually you can, when you do a CPA specialization route, you still have a few spots here and there for your Schulich elective to specialize in another sort of specialization. I'm saying that a lot, a different major. So all you really need to specialize in one field is 4 courses between year 3 and year 4, I believe. And even if you take the CPA route, there is literally just enough space for 4 additional Schulich elective courses. So if you direct all of those towards one specialization, you will have another one by the time you graduate.
Amazing, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Nicole, do you want to ask your question out loud and unmute yourself? Nicole? Okay, maybe she's shy. I'll ask her question for her.
My mic,
I hear.
my mic wasn't working. So
Right, no.
we went through course enrollment recently, and since the 3 of you went to Schulich, which are good, easy, but useful non-business electives which we can take? Because I was looking through the list and it's hard. It's hard to find some that are good courses to take.
I can jump in and start this one.
There we go.
So for me, I took psychology in first year. Really love learning that, especially because I'm a little bit of a creative. So marketing courses fit really well into that as well when I was doing my electives there. Later on, second, third, and fourth year, I focused on social work courses. Those were relatively easy, I would say, but they were also very useful because I was passionate in that. So not necessarily in conjunction with accounting, but I liked understanding society as well as all the people that are in it and how we can better be like allies and things of that nature with these people. So that's how I kind of went about picking my electives. And then I think I also took some music ones just to alleviate that creative side, but it was fun to balance that alongside accounting for sure.
To kind of jump in here, voice and speech was also really great. But for those of you that might like history, there's a course called the mythology. Oh, I can't remember the course name, but if you message me later on, I can send you the course code. It's HUMA 1105. And it's just kind of the historical side. It's just Greek mythology, but there's a couple versions to it, so you can kind of carry it all the way through your undergrad if you like history.
Can I jump into this one too? Yeah, sorry. But yeah, I would say there isn't really a right answer for what's useful or not because it's going to differ for everyone. The best choice to take, as you can kind of see with what Anika and Mahek said, is to honestly just take whatever you're really interested in outside of business. So whether that be, if you're creative and you want to take psych, if you're a history buff and you want to take history, it shouldn't be based on what you think is going to be an easy bird course or what's going to get you a 9.0 or what's just going to be, okay, I can just jump into this class and jump out of it. Like there's so many different courses at York and there's so much to learn, especially in their different sociology, political science, all of that, literature, English. I was a really big English buff, so I took lots of literature courses and Anika laughed at me for it. But take what you want and honestly just really try to learn something outside of business that you have a genuine interest and passion for. So there's no really a right answer for that.
Thank you. So we have another question from Tanvi. Is she here? You can just unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, so I've been hearing this a lot. Is accounting becoming more and more computerized? Will accounting still have a lot of scope when we graduate and in the future?
Either one of our accounting specialists, if you just want to jump in there.
Yeah, for sure. I'll go first. In terms of being computerized, I think in general, you'll notice that especially in the big 4 firms, a lot of your work is on the computer, but it's not so much more automatic. Like the manual work still exists. A lot of it that computers can do, we still require people like auditors to be able to double check the work. And so a lot of that's still in place. I think accounting might change in the future, my guess is, because things will be automated, but the concept of having like humans double check the work and make sure that those things and creating new processes are still going to exist are very much still prominent in the accounting world. You also see that in one of our accounting courses where they focus on how things are being automated as well as how accounting is applicable in the tech world and vice versa. And you'll see big 4s are kind of assimilating more to that as well. But for sure, it's kind of a give and take on both ends, and you'll see it kind of integrated into your courses. So by the time you graduate, your accounting degree will just be as worthwhile as it was before.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Go for it.
But yeah, very similar to what Anika said, accounting, especially in year 1 and year 2, when it's still mandatory, a lot of the work you end up learning does feel like it's stuff that can be computerized because it's like journal entries. But it's really just so that you set the foundation of what accounting is. But once you start hitting your actual specialization in year 3 and year 4, a lot of things that accounting starts to teach you is less sort of numbers and just what adds up to what that obviously computer can do, but accounting actually starts teaching you how to think and how to make decisions and how to genuinely like evaluate stuff, like Anika said with audit. And it becomes less of a computerized thing and more of a discussion basis. So it does end up changing a lot, and it still has, the accounting specialization still has a lot of merit, even in this future that we live in now. Like, I think a lot of the courses that professors are teaching are constantly being updated to be more and more relevant, like Anika said, whether it be from our IT courses or even our discussion-based sort of case courses. They always try to make sure that you're getting knowledge that will be applicable as soon as you hit like the workforce when it happens.
Okay, so Catherine has a question.
Hi. Can you guys hear me all right? All right. My question is, being all recent grads, how has COVID impacted your job search or other people that you know? And do you see any like long-lasting impacts of it?
Okay, so let's start with Mahek for this one.
So I actually started searching for jobs after I graduated because I'm gonna go back for my master's. So I was like, if it happens, it happens. And so to be honest, like being very honest, yes, it has, because I guess employers can be pickier now. So I suggest, like, while you have this downtime, and while everybody is impacted, so I know my friends that are kind of impacted, they've still been doing interviews. So it's not like there's nothing out there. It's just people are pickier. So what they have been doing is brushing up their skill set. So for example, I started taking up learning R, which is something I didn't even kind of know was a big thing until I graduated. Or maybe brushing up on, say, for example, social media marketing, just maybe more so technical skills that you may need, that you see in job descriptions all the time. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Clarine, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just say that COVID has been really difficult for new grads, especially. It's really hard finding like a full-time job when the economy is kind of in the literal shits. But like Mahek said, a lot of the people that I know who currently are not employed for the time being have just been brushing up on skills again and still trying to like expand and network and find new ways to be really innovative during this quarantine, whether it be learning new skills or finding their own little startups to do to pass the time or to make into something bigger. So
And finally, Anika, any other input?
Yeah, I think just on a more accounting focused conversation, when it comes to accounting firms, they are essential businesses. So they're still hiring. And what's great is that, to my knowledge, there's the cycle of hiring is still the same. They're still doing similar activities just virtually to connect with students that are studying accounting. So that's been good. And then just in a more general sense, a lot of jobs have gone remotely. So they're looking for people that are able to work from home, understand technology a little bit better, which gives all of you a bit of an advantage, because being in the generation that you are, technology is all around you. So I think knowing that and brushing up on your skills, like the other panelists said, is a great way to make sure that you're ready for that workforce and that you're ready to be hired by any employer.
Thank you.
Perfect. And we have another question from Krithi.
Yeah, so my question is more directed at Mahek. So what kind of businesses can you work in with international business other than just government? And other than just like the human interaction aspect, what other like aspects are there to a career in international business?
So another facet you could go down is the import and export facet. So there are a lot of big import and export firms out there that you could work at. And apart from just the human interaction aspect, there's also a finance-based aspect to it, because you have things like forward contracts and spot contracts, and there are people that get paid to forecast this stuff, consult on this stuff, actually follow through with this stuff. Also intermediaries, where you have people in between countries that kind of act as the middlemen and say, oh, hey, like I can get you that deal, or I can, I don't know, help you out here if you need supplies. There's also a little bit of a supply chain aspect to it, like where are you getting XYZ things that you may need to procure certain things from. So those are other aspects that you could branch into.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so the next question is from Nicole again.
So I have two questions. One is directed towards Mahak. Are you doing a master's when you were talking, it seems like you're doing a master's. Are you doing it in September? And which kind of master's is it? That's the first question. The second question is, what do you do in your daily job? Like, what are the day-to-day activities? I'm asking because it's nice to say you're working in finance, for example. I'm going to use finance, but it's nice to say you're looking at stocks and bonds, but what exactly is it? What do you do when you log in on your computer at 9 a.m.?
That's a good question. Okay, so Mahak, do you want to answer the first part of her question about masters and such?
Yeah, so going through my undergrad, I was very opposite to Anika and Clarine, where I kind of just focused on like the human interaction portion because that's what I liked. So my master's is going to be a little bit more technical based. I'm going to be doing it in real estate and infrastructure. That just because I'm actually surrounded by a lot of people that have that as a career. So they kind of guided me to it and hopefully through it as well.
And Anika, what do you do when you log on to the computer every day? How does this work?
Yeah, so I can speak a little to this mainly because I did an internship also at PwC last summer. In terms of the work, whether you're an intern or associate, what's great is that they really let you interact with all aspects of being in audit and being in risk assurance for me. So a lot of it is client meetings, going to client sites, interacting with them to get the data and the information we need to complete their audits. So that's everything from phone calls to direct emails with clients to actually going to their offices. I've known associates, first and second year associates, that end up traveling to get to those clients and work like a week in a different city, which is really cool. But ultimately, you're trying to compile all that information. There's a lot of Excel work. So if you're good at Excel, it's always good to brush up on your skills there. That's a main portion of it as well. And then working with the different softwares to make sure that you're completing the projects and the engagements on time alongside different departments. So a lot of team meetings and interacting with everyone from managers to senior associates as well. Yeah.
Okay, and Clarine.
Yeah, so when I was interning for different companies with a more accounting specific role, a lot of my day-to-day job was either doing audit, like Anika has mentioned previously, which included getting lots of documentation and receipts. So lots of big binders full of paper, going through all of them one by one to make sure the numbers are right. Again, working a lot with Excel, speaking to different clients and customers, both internally and externally to the company, to ask them for follow-ups like, hey, can you explain why this number looks kind of funky, or is this fraud? Usually it's not fraud. And lots of communicating with different teams to be like, why does this number look this way? Does anyone have any backup documentation? Is this something that we've done previously, or is this something new? In the job I did last summer, I did a lot of bank reconciliations and regular sort of booking journal entries, lots of month-end stuff, which means just wrapping up all of your finances for whatever the time period is. So whether it be quarterly, annually, etc. So lots of that, and a lot of it is, like I've mentioned before, like human work. There's definitely an element that can be computerized, such as the journal entries that can be done automatically, but most of it was really talking to my fellow employees and really trying to like hunt out, why do you get this potentially automated number? Why does it look like that? Where is it coming from? What does it mean? So it's kind of almost doing like a little mystery hunt every day, except it's not always fun. And sometimes you're screaming a little bit because you don't know what's going on. And for my job now at Walmart, my day-to-day basis or schedule is really different because I'm working on site at a physical Walmart location that you might regularly go to, and just taking inventory, counting, doing lots of different checks and all of that. So almost like a manager stuff, and just seeing how day-to-day operations run on the ground level of such a huge company. So yeah.
Well, thank you both and Mahek for giving us an inside look into your jobs. I think that was a really good question. The next question is from Navalpreet. So Navalpreet, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi. So my question is, if someone's not like right now sure if they want to do CPA, and just want to specialize, if they were to just specialize in accounting, how would that impact like with the job search at the end of graduation if they don't take the CPA path?
Anika, do you want to?
Yeah, sorry, my mic was just blurry. It wasn't working. So in terms of that, I don't think it would put you at a disadvantage. If anything, you're putting yourself out there to learn more skills, which is great. I think it honestly is more of a good thing than a negative thing if you don't end up pursuing your CPA. I know usually it's a long journey to get there, and maybe like it seems like a lot of work, but you're still gaining all these skills. You're going to learn how to do your taxes by the end of Schulich, understand so many aspects of managerial and financial accounting, which I think help you in any business position. I don't know if Clarine thinks differently, but I think that's where I stand on that.
Yeah, pretty similar to Anika. I think that when employers are looking at your resume, they're not looking to see, you know, does this person have an intent or like to do CPA? It's always been more about what are your soft skills and what have you learned that you can bring to our workplace when I do interviews. And I think anyone can say that regardless of if you're an accounting specialization or marketing specialization. They're not looking at necessarily your content of what you've learned in your class, but rather the type of person you are and what skills you bring. And obviously accounting courses, whether it's a CPA path or not, accounting courses in general, they teach you a lot of really important soft skills. And I think if you really boost that up, that's something that I think any employer would love to see. Even if you go into marketing and you say you have some accounting background, that kind of adds a twist to you because, hey, I can do marketing and also I can do my taxes. So it's really about, you know, how you sort of think of your experience and not so much about just what you learn in your class or trying to tick off like what's a CPA specialization, will this give me further credentials? You have to really think about your soft skills.
Perfect. And we have another question from Rita. It's for Anika. So Rita, do you want to unmute yourself again?
Sure. So Anika mentioned, you mentioned that you were recruiting for PwC and you're currently working there. So I was just wondering if you could speak to your internship experience while you recruited there, and as well as like what did the application process involve, and if you had any advice for potential applicants, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, of course. It's a great question. So I started applying for Big Four firms, I want to say in my second year. That's also when I did the interview for PwC, and I got accepted into one of their conferences. So I think it was called Talent Academy. It's usually a summer conference where the next year's interns are invited to just get to know the firm a little bit. They talk about the company and what your job would look like. There's a lot of team building skills. It's really awesome of an experience. So that's where I started my journey with PwC. And that was really awesome, getting to know everyone in the firm. The year after, so last summer, when I was interning full-time in the downtown office, I had a lot of experiences working with different teams, which I thought was really cool. Clients were changing all the time. So all the clients I worked on, I can't speak too much to their business history, but they were all from different industries, which was interesting to see how that accounting aspect ties into all of that, which is something Clarine and I spoke about earlier as well. That was really cool. And then they also had a lot of socials and gatherings for interns to get them more into the culture of PwC, which is really great to see because then you really grow a culture with your intern group. We even did like a Big Four Frisbee tournament, which was awesome among all the firms in the summer, and ultimately learned a lot from my peers, from my senior associates, and even partners that were willing to reach out and have coffee chats with me. And I thought that was a really good experience. In terms of the application process, from what I remember, there was no cover letter. It was simply you sending in your resume, and then you had a 3-parter assessment that was online, a couple of interview questions, kind of like how you got into Schulich before there was an actual interview with a partner. And then once you got to that level, it's really just questions about you, about what you're interested in. And I don't even really remember having questions about the technical aspects of accounting. It's more so what your personality is like, whether it fits with the culture, because by the time you apply to these firms, they know you go to a good school. So they're not testing you for whether or not you know financial accounting. It's more so whether or not you're going to fit in just as an employee and how willing to work in a team environment. And lastly, advice for potential applicants: really try to find ways to set yourself apart from everyone else, because like I said, they're not looking for a cookie cutter accountant. I think all the people that I work with have brought something unique to the table. My interview was all about all the things I really liked doing outside of accounting. So pulling those facts in and really using them to stand out, whether you're networking or in your interview, is going to go a long way with PwC.
Thank you so much.
All right, and so I feel like that is a good leeway to even just continue to our other 2 panelists to ask what your recruitment process was like. Clarine, do you want to take us through what it takes to be a DARE associate?
Yeah, so my kind of accounting path is a little bit different from Anika. So I worked first at the government for my first 2 years at Schulich in the summer. And then last year I worked at Suncor, which owns Petro-Canada. Yeah, they own Petro-Canada. And most of my experiences with interviewing for those have just been the very standard video interview first, and then 1 or 2 in-person interviews. And like Anika said, I think they always ask me more about like my personality and like what I want to do and what are my plans for the future, which are usually a big question mark. And just trying to figure out the type of person I am. A lot of it always does boil down to, do you fit into this company's culture and their lifestyle? For Walmart, it was a little bit different because I did a video interview, and then I did 1 in-person interview at Schulich, where they just kind of asked me, again, more general questions about me. And I think they were a little bit more focused on sort of not my technical aspects, but kind of my experience with accounting work. I don't know if I'm lagging. Am I lagging? Okay. But yeah, they typically ask me more about sort of what my work experience was like and trying to figure out what my work ethic is for that one. And then once I passed that first interview, I got invited to their headquarters in Mississauga for a full day interview where I did a group case, like a group case pressure tank sort of thing, if y'all are familiar with case competition. So we did one of that in a random group. And then we did an individual case competition, sort of, again, pressure tank, to solve one of their current problems. And then they had us stand and present it in front of a judge on a one-on-one basis, which was completely terrifying. And then we did another one-on-one interview for, I think, about an hour or about an hour and a half, just again, talking about my experience. I talked a lot about Schulich and how much fun I had there. And I think the person who interviewed me kind of agreed because they gave me a job. And then we did a couple of other sort of group interviews. So it was a very lengthy day and a very long recruitment process, but a lot of it was learning more about me for the company. And at the same time, they kind of had that day set up so that I could learn about the company as well. So it was really informative on both ends. And it's kind of really cool to see how much, they prioritize trying to really learn about you as a person and not so much asking you, oh, what's a debit and what's a credit, because then I definitely wouldn't have gotten employed anywhere. So.
And finally, Mahek. Thanks, Clarine, for that.
So like I said, last year when I got back from my exchange, it was a little bit later into the summer. So I just had a friend be like, hey, you should come work with me. You seem to kind of be going along this path. So I did. And that's kind of exactly what landed me in my position right now. I had the same friend reach out and kind of be like, hey, like, are you working? And I was like, no. And they were like, well, there's XYZ job. And I was like, okay. And so the interview process was kind of very lax, where they were kind of just like, hey, like, send us your resume, and just asked a couple questions just about personal beliefs and work ethic. That's what it came down to, was the soft skills. Can you really talk to people, and do you have the patience to deal with complex issues? So that was that.
Perfect. Another question from Quentin, but their mic is broken, so I'm just going to ask the question for them. So they're asking, what are some skills or assets you guys think is good to have in the early stages of the recruitment process? Or I think in the sense, they also mean like in the early stages of just being at Schulich. So let's start with Karine.
Yeah, so some of the ones that you mentioned, like Word, Excel, are obviously super important. If you're really good at Excel, no matter what you do, it's going to be desired everywhere. I think another really good skill to have is coding, especially with how everything is moving online now, and coding is crazy difficult, and so complex to learn. Having that skill really does give you an additional edge when it comes to whatever job you're applying for. Whether it be HTML, CSS, Ruby on Rails, all that stuff, I think is really good to learn. And I think just learning about even like design stuff, if you're going into marketing too, I know it's not really discussed here, but it's always a good idea to really know at least the basics of how to sort of design something. So you're not stuck with like Microsoft Paint, because weirdly enough, it does come in handy, whether it be for your job or for your future at Schulich as well. It's nice to at least have the ability to, you know, make something, promote yourself even if you have to. So I think that's sort of some other skills to be picking up during this time.
Anika, did you want to chime in?
I think I completely agree with Clarine. One skill I don't have that I completely agree with her on is coding. When I started at PwC, they talked about trying to teach us Python. It was very cool. Also very hard to just pick up in one lesson, but it's something that you can always look into more. And then for me, I always think it's good to be very much hands-on on things like Google Suites, Microsoft Office, because these are softwares that are almost ingrained into every firm. And when you know how to use them, you're just that much of an advantage against other people. And you'd be surprised how many people in the actual firms and companies that you want to work for are not familiar with these things at all, especially Google Suite. But our generation, again, seems to be very much into this. So make sure that you understand the shortcuts and all the things that you can do in them, because it definitely comes in handy.
Matt, did you want to add something?
Yeah, so I know like you guys probably hear this a lot, but a lot of the skills that are great to pick up in the early stages are also a lot of the soft skills. So like we were talking about coding and how a lot of people don't actually know it. I think before you get there, you also have to understand that, hey, like I don't know this, and have the will to want to work hard enough to pick it up, as well as a lot of networking, just the ability to talk to people and to really be able to sell yourself. Those are skills that, you know, if you're in like first, second, third year, like start going to networking events, even if like they're only hiring third years, just get that practice in.
Thank you, Mahak. So Janelle has a question. Janelle, do you want to unmute yourself?
Hi, I was just wondering what other areas you can work in with a CPA designation other than just taxes and finance?
So Clarine is laughing, so Clarine can go first.
I love taxes and finance. So a lot of different things an accountant can do is APAR is kind of the first ones that I think of off the top of my head. So accounts receivable, accounts payables, they have whole departments just dedicated to how to account for when you pay money out versus when people owe you money and how to chase them and all that. I've never personally worked in any of them myself, but those are very viable departments. There's also things like, what was the one I worked for? So there's a few where you have to do, like contracting is also another one for accounting as well. When you work with financial contracts, there's those. Even a little bit of like business law, I feel like comes in for a few of them, because you do need accountants on hand to sort of verify that information. All of this is very, very subjective to what type of company you're working in and sort of where your interest is. So the bigger ones, the biggest companies obviously will have all these different departments. Some of the smaller ones or startups might really only have, say, for example, finances and taxes for the time being until they have AP, ARs, etc. I don't know if Anika has any more to add on.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the ones I learned in third year, it's called forensic accounting. It's what it sounds like, and it's super interesting. Yeah, I really liked it. It's something that I think once you get more into audit and you have your CPA, you're able to tackle that field because it's not something people just start off as interns. And then other than that too, CPAs are normally obtained by a lot of people that are also in higher management. So if you look up someone you respect on LinkedIn, most of the time they'll have their CPA or some sort of higher designation, which really helps them because making official business decisions when you're an executive at a company, it requires backgrounds like that. So that's why I say CPA is just beyond accounting. It's more than just your 2-3 years of studying and working in it as well.
Awesome. And since we are talking about all of the accounting routes, we do have another question for Ash now, which is also about accounting electives. So Asha, do you want to unmute yourself?
Hi. My question is that specializing in accounting, what were some of the non-accounting Schulich electives that you found interesting in your third and fourth year or you would recommend taking?
So do you want to start with, let's just start with Mahek for this one. Anything that didn't have to do with your specialization that you found really interesting?
So there's a conflict and negotiations. It's a great course. It's a lot of I want to say like role play, like you kind of learn how to negotiate, which like when you're in the course, it kind of seems like, oh, like, did I really just show up to this class to like pretend to like sell a car? But later on, when you're actually kind of working, it really does come back because she teaches you like different strategies, which in the moment you're kind of like, oh my God, this is obvious. But when you actually do put it into play in your working life, they do help a lot. And it's also going to be, it's a stress reliever. So it's also going to be like different from your textbook heavy courses where you'll actually get to kind of engage with the whole class. So that would be one.
Okay, Anika, do you have another non-accounting Schulich elective that you'd like to promote?
Yeah, this one actually just came into the course curriculum, I think this year. I took it when it came out for the first time. So in fourth year, I took diversity and inclusion in the workplace. I loved it. I think it sparked a lot of really important conversations that needs to be had in the business world. It's very much in business context. I wouldn't say it's very surface level. It dives a little deeper than your organizational behavior courses, which is super important, especially if you're going to be working in teams. Beyond that, again, I'm really into marketing. So I also took entertainment marketing and marketing research, both really useful courses, learned a lot of really good skills with great profs, and ultimately helped me balance the creative side of my life as well as the technical side with accounting.
Thank you. And Clarine, any recommendations?
Yeah, I think my all-time favorite course at Schulich was it was called Heroes, Leaders, and Culture in the Workplace. It's an ORIS course. I absolutely love it. All you really do in that course is watch movies. So as a movie buff, it's one of my favorite things to do. And you actually have really interesting conversations and discussions about it afterwards. And it's not necessarily always business based, so you're not kind of dissecting a movie to talk about capitalism. You actually talk a lot about human aspects and teamwork and leadership and what do you even define all those things as, and what does it mean to you. And the movies themselves are obviously not just things like, what was it, Wolf on Wall Street. Like, they're an extremely diverse set of movies talking about a lot of different things, and I thought the professor who taught it was just so compelling and so kind. So definitely one of my favorite courses. I highly recommend it. Another one I believe that I wish I took was VBA and Python. Those are two separate courses that are also offered here at Schulich. Again, the whole thing with coding. Everyone I know who took it was crying because coding makes you want to do that more often than not. But they definitely could not say that they didn't learn anything from it. I think all of them gained so much from learning or taking those courses. And I genuinely wish I had the chance to take them myself as well.
Sorry, I just wanted to add on another course that wasn't a part of my major is management consulting, and it really actually ties up everything that you've learned at Schulich together, because now you're being thrown a case that's some parts accounting, some parts finance, some parts supply chain, some marketing. Like, it really ties everything together, and I feel like there aren't that many courses at Schulich that kind of sum everything up, apart from when you guys do your summative course, the simulation course. So that's definitely one thing, like a course you should try to get into.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're going to move on to our next question from Sarah. So Sarah, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. So I've only just finished first year, so I know I still have a long time to consider this, but I've noticed that a lot of students are doing case comps. And my question is, am I at a disadvantage when I'm looking for a job by not doing them, or will doing other activities or clubs also look good on my resume?
All of you look equally excited to answer this question. We'll start with Clarine.
Yeah, so personally, I don't think that case competitions make that much of a difference when you're talking to your employers. I like how you're like celebrating right now, because like it's a big mood. Personally, I actually did a lot of case competitions in my run in first and second year. But to me, I think I've only ever had like an employer bring it up like once, just literally say, "You've done a lot of case competitions." And I'm like, "Yeah." And then we talk about something else. I think it's definitely really beneficial, of course, to do as much as you can, whether it be case competitions or joining a club or an extracurricular. But again, the thing I can sort of advocate the most for is doing what you personally really want to do, not just for resume value. If you find a case competition that really speaks to you, whether it be their brand or the companies they have involved or the cases that they're doing, like just do it and have fun. And if you have a club that you want to sort of partake more in and a position that you're really interested in within that club, definitely do it. Whether or not you win a case competition or become a really high ranking executive in a club or not, if you genuinely have a passion for it and you put it on your resume and someone asks you about it, like they will be able to tell how much you love what you do. And I think that's a quality that every employer loves to see. It's just this individual really has a passion, right? And they have something that motivates them, that drives them. So yeah, do what you prefer most. And I think people will be able to see what you love at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you.
I'm really inspired. Does anyone else want to continue to answer the question? Mahak, do you have anything to say, to add on?
Okay, so I'll just add on and say I was the complete opposite of Clarine, where I think I've done one case competition throughout my undergrad. Embarrassing, but it's not really that big of a deal. Like, it won't put you at a disadvantage. But like, on the other hand, like, I do suggest, if like you can't find the time for them, maybe sit down and do them by yourself. Like, I did a lot of that, just going over cases, just to see like what my solution would have been, and then talking about it with friends kind of takes away like from the pressure or the competitive aspect of having to go through a case competition and dress up for it and everything. And at the same time, if you're not like, if that's just not your thing, maybe try to look into like different conferences. Like, I know Apex is really great. I went to that, just so you can hear keynote speakers talk about their journey and kind of take part in team building activities and, like, you know, kind of be exposed to the networking scene.
I'll add on one more thing quickly. In terms of case competitions, I don't think it affects whether or not you get a job, but what case competitions are great for is putting yourselves in really uncomfortable zones where you have to problem solve and you have to put yourself out there. I absolutely hate public speaking, and so I had to get through that by putting myself in those positions. Case competitions are great for that. Things like, for Schulich specifically, we have like Rise, Spark, and Nova that happen during the year. Those are great ones to get started in. And then as you continue on in your Schulich journey, if you want to be a part of more case competitions that are outside of the school or even more international ones, Schulich has those opportunities. So, I mean, if you have the time and you have the energy, why not? But I wouldn't say that it affects your job and whether or not you get something at the end of the day.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So Sarah again, but a different Sarah. You want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, so I guess this is directed at whoever wants to answer, but would you say that as someone who chose to specialize, you had an advantage in getting certain jobs over your peers that chose to specialize or not to specialize in anything, like just get their IBBA or BBA degree?
Anika, do you want to start off with this one?
Yeah, I can start. I think not necessarily an advantage. I think with accounting, though, the reason you have to specialize in it is because if you want your CPA, you need to take these courses. That's really the only factor that ties you into having to take all of the courses that they showed at the beginning of the presentation. In terms of other courses that you're taking, as long as you're interested in them and you know that it ties back into your business mindset, I don't think it's going to be a disadvantage if you don't choose one specific specialization. But definitely helps if you're focused on one field. That's really what it is at the end of the day.
Okay. Mehek, do you have anything to add on?
I guess I can say, like, speaking for like the non-accounting part, it just gives you, I guess you can talk more to a specific facet of business. I think that would be the advantage of a specialization. That being said, like, I feel like you have so much, like so many courses and like so many requirements that you need to go through at Schulich that I feel like at the end of the day, even if you're not intending on a specialization, you're kind of going to end up with two or three, which is what happens to a lot of us that didn't go through accounting. I actually ended up with three, and it was kind of just some of the courses are so intertwined that it just kind of happens. So I think even if you're not aiming for it, it'll fall through.
Okay, and Clarice.
Yeah, I personally don't really think that having a specialization or not kind of gives you a disadvantage or disadvantage. In the case of accounting, it's kind of obvious that you kind of want to be an accounting specialization student to take on an accounting role because they're going to expect you to do your CPA later. So it's probably good to have that sort of foundation. But I think if you're still undecided by the time you hit third or fourth year, there's also completely nothing wrong with that at all. It's not going to be like you're banned from jobs just because you didn't specialize in something. There are lots and lots of graduate programs nowadays that are being more and more available and more adopted by bigger companies to actually help you decide what sort of path or department you want to pursue in your long-term career. So for example, my actual full-time job that I signed with doesn't require any specialization. There are kids who are in business, kids who are in engineering and science, etc., who are doing the same job as me. And that's because they want lots of well-rounded individuals. So that's something that you can get, whether you specialize or not, right? And they give you sort of that platform to decide, what do you want to do? Even things, even big companies, I believe Bell also has a really good postgraduate sort of program that you don't have to specialize in either, that lets you do the same thing and sort of explore different facets of business before truly deciding on what you want to pursue later on. And lots of successful students have come out of Schulich unspecialized and done something amazing with their BBA or their IBBA. So by the time you're in third and fourth year, if you still don't really have it figured out and you don't really specialize, like Mahak said, you're probably going to end up with two or three accidentally or on purpose. And it's going to be all the more beneficial to you at the end of the day because it shows that you know lots about lots of different things. And that's definitely something that certain companies are really going to be attracted to at the end of the day because it shows that you're really well-rounded in a lot of different fields.
Yeah, I think that was a really great question. Yeah, definitely we don't want to force any of you to specialize in an area. And I think I've definitely seen that when you choose the courses that you're most passionate about, by not even thinking of a specialization, you do end up specializing. So that's definitely something to think about. And we have another question from Hassana. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hello. I was wondering if you guys were part of the Accounting Society, and if yes, what were some of your roles and activities?
Maybe we can generalize this question a little bit and just talk about the extracurriculars that you were involved in. Actually, sorry, I can't talk. Let's start with Anika.
Hi. I started off first and second year being a part of Isaac. It's a club that helps facilitate international exchange for volunteers and interns. And then I was part of Corporate Social Responsibility Society at Schulich, which was very interesting to see the CSR side of business and interacting with that. To your question, though, not a part of the Accounting Society. The last 2 years of my undergrad, I was a part of UBS. So I was actually the president of the Undergraduate Business Society last year. Love it. And I love that it helped me take in a lot of different projects. And I'll tie it back to accounting even. Clarine and I were both on council this year, and we dealt with a lot of things that had to do with accounting. And it was almost like a real life case, which is interesting because when you're on council, you're dealing with a lot more higher stakes. So in that sense, I definitely did a bit of accounting, but other than that, primarily just council.
All right.
Oh, let's jump to Clarine.
Yeah, so my path is similar and different to Nika's in a few ways. So I actually stayed within UBS for all 4 years of my time at Schulich because I'm brand loyal. So I did marketing for my first 3 years at UBS, which I dearly, dearly loved. So I did content writing in year 1. I was a photographer and a video editor in year 2. Year 3, I was VP marketing. So I oversaw all the stuff I used to do in year 1 and year 2, which was super fun. And then year 4, I decided to go full psychotic and did VP finance alongside Anika, who was president at the time. So like Anika said, there were lots of different almost accounting related cases if we're to tie that back into the specialization. And it was very much hands-on experience that you definitely would not be able to learn in any type of classroom here at Schulich. Being on a club, I think no matter what position you do, is sort of a different experience to really branch out and to learn different aspects of what it takes to, you know, literally run a small company in and of itself, because that's kind of what every club is doing. You're running a small group of executives providing services to your student body, and you have different sort of specialists and different skill sets, and you really get that hands-on experience no matter, you know, what role you have, that can't really be replicated in a textbook. So bringing it back to accounting, my role as VP finance was crazy. Lots of auditing, lots of talking to the CRA, talking to York administration, talking to Schulich administration, figuring out, you know, how to calculate stuff on Excel, having like 13 Excel sheets open at all times. And I think that at the end of the day, really helped me get the roles and the jobs that I got, because it not only did it give me the soft skills, but it gave me something to really talk about that had, you know, legitimate backing to what I do, even though it's not, you know, I learned this from an accredited professor at an accredited school. Like, that experience is extremely genuine. And I think you can say that for almost every club here at Schulich or even at York.
Awesome, we love our UBS alumni. And let's jump to Mehak.
So I was involved with the ambassadors for all 4 years, and I ended up being a student development lead at the very end in my 4th. It's just a lot of like gathering data, like running workshops, the reflection workshops about the soft skills that you guys have to do for the tiers if any of you guys are a part of it. And I was also VP of marketing at the Debate Society, which, like, both things kind of just brought me a lot of soft skills to be able to kind of talk to people, which is something I use, like I said, like daily. Really get to know and understand what somebody might want to say and kind of like the underlying needs.
For sure, I highly recommend everybody get involved with the ambassador program because it takes nothing to join and you've got everything to gain from it. My little fly plug in there. But that basically concludes the question aspect, the Q&A session. I am glad a lot of you had your questions answered, but in the event that you do still have more questions, Anika, Clarine, and Mehak have kindly agreed to kind of be available to you. So if you want to message them on Facebook, send them an email. If you want to just drop your emails in the chat so that they can see it, that would be really helpful. So that would be great. And if you have specific questions about enrollment, these two lovely ladies on the screen are kind of your go-to people. So we've got Luba Pan, who's the director of the SES, Student Enrollment Services, and we have Mariana, who is the undergraduate programs coordinator and your advisor. So for those of you who did have Kathleen this past year, unfortunately her contract has ended at Schulich, so it's just going to be Mariana for a bit, but your other advisor, Rohini, will join very, very shortly this month. So you're going to have two advisors. And for those of you who reached out to Keisha Gray on the regular, Luba is your new Keisha. So some new faces to look forward to. And you can reach both of them at undergraduate@schulich.yorku.ca, and you can book your own one-on-one advising appointments as well. So with that, Mahek and I would like to thank you very much for coming. Thank you to our 3 class of 2020 panelists. It's wild to think you're already alumni because we saw you in the halls like yesterday. But thanks so much for joining us. And to those of you who will be joining us for other specializations, we hope to see you then. So yeah, and we're going to conclude the session, and let us know if you have any questions and give us your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks, everyone.